I did it! Finally! Finally, it's over. It's finally over. After all these years. Oh, thank goodness. And there you go, guys. We did it. We finally did it after 8 long years. We finally completed Dragon Quest VII Fragments of the Forgotten Past on the 3DS. Before we get into it though, there are 2 people I want to give a quick shout out to. The first person being the Happy Console Gamer himself, the shirt that I'm representing. Without Johnny Millennium, so many games would have never been introduced to me. I started watching Johnny probably back in 2010, and around that time I was your standard bro gamer. I grew up playing all just the standard games, your Marios and Zeldas and stuff, but then kind of drifted into the Call of Duties and the Halos and everything. And in 2010 I started watching Johnny. I found his channel because I was getting into collecting and stuff again, and his channel had popped up on my feed. I don't know whether or not it's because I was watching Pete Dorr first and it maybe led to Johnny. I forgot how it worked, but I just started watching his stuff and just being introduced to a whole new world of games that I had never played before. Mainly being JRPGs, and the one that stuck out to me the most was Dragon Quest. And the passion that Johnny talked about Dragon Quest through his videos was just flowing through the camera. You could tell he loved the franchise. One of my favorite videos I always go back to watch over and over again each year was his whole series overview. I believe it's like a 3-part series overview that he does, and it's just incredible because he just loves the franchise, and it just made me like I had to get into it. I wasn't a big JRPG gamer yet, but it made me want to get into it. But I give him a lot of the credit for wanting me to get into this franchise. So Johnny, if you ever watch this, thank you for it. Thank you for introducing me to it. The other person being my fellow co-host from back in the day on Another Gaming Podcast, Dustin Christ. He really loved Dragon Quest himself and spoke highly of it all the time. Another big JRPG gamer, and he just would talk about Dragon Quest and his love for it. He had played like everything in it. And I remember when I finally got a chance to meet him in person, I hung out at his house and stayed a couple days over a weekend. I made sure to bring him a gift, and it was Dragon Quest themed. I brought him the Dragon Quest keyboard, so I knew I had to get something Dragon Quest because he loved it so much. And again, the passion and the way he spoke about it, they were just, him and Johnny both are just so knowledgeable about it. They're so good at speaking and talking about games, way better than I could ever do it, and I've always said it. Even though I love video games, I know I got a bad way of just putting it out there and expressing how I feel about them, but man, the passion they talked about Dragon Quest was just awesome. So now that that not so quick shout out is out the way, let's get into kind of talking about this game and the story we went on here and why it took 8 years. So basically by the time this game came out, I had already played Dragon Quest IX. That's where I got my foot in the door. Dragon Quest IX was my start, and I loved it. I just loved the simple turn-based combat system. I loved the storytelling in the game. It just flowed so great. I love kind of like the leveling up and job system in it. It was just, it seemed classic, and I like classic, and I just liked how it just stuck to the roots of JRPGs where everything else was trying to change it. You know, we had Final Fantasy 13 and stuff probably released around that time, and you had these different action time gauges and everything is like time based now. You got to be quick on your thoughts, and I just like, you know what, I love the simple turn-based style. So Dragon Quest really had that appeal to me. And then I went on from Dragon Quest IX and played the first 3 entries, and I really enjoyed them too. But then there was wind that we were finally going to be getting the 3DS entries brought over here to North America. You know, Japan had gotten them back in 2013, and in 2016 we were going to finally be getting them over here in the States. So I knew that I was going to be there day one for Dragon Quest VII. Now, if you're not familiar with Dragon Quest VII from what I've heard in other videos, especially from Happy Console Gamer and Dustin and stuff, it's one of those, it's kind of like the odd sheep out of the group from what I had researched about it before getting into the game. It was a game that was really long and had a lot of hours into it. So if you weren't going to be able to sit there for 100+ hours, this wasn't going to be your cup of tea. Also heard that it was just a very confusing storyline in it because it had a lot of time travel aspect and so on and so forth. So it made it kind of intimidating to want to dive into it. But I said, I don't care. I'm going into it. So that's what we did day one. We bought that game. I brought it home and I started playing it. So if you don't know the story of Dragon Quest VII, you basically start off as your main character, the hero, on an island in this world where you are the lone island. You find out later on, after receiving a certain tablet from your father, that there actually used to be more islands that inhabited this world, but they all were succumbed to evil and bad things that had happened on the island. But eventually, you get a little bit further into the game, you find more tablets, and it lets you time travel back into the past to try to save the day and rescue those islands from disaster so they can all be a part of the world in the future, in the present. And that's kind of where the time travel aspect's happening. You're going to the past, then coming back to the present to see how that islands and stuff change and how they're still here around today. And rinse and repeat. You're going back and forth, sometime revisiting old islands again, and it can get confusing. Sometimes you're like, am I in the past or in the present? Like, what's going on? You know you're in the past, though, when you're actually fighting enemies out on the battlefield. You know you're in the present when there's no fighting going on because everyone's been saved. There are no monsters anymore. That's pretty much your journey until you find about the big bad. It has a cool little middle twist in the game, or not really the middle, more towards the end, that leads to an epic climax where you're fighting against the main boss, and it was just awesome. I really enjoyed it. But if you enjoyed it so much, Steve-O, then why did it take you so long to finish it? Well, I'll explain it. Just like any other game, I know a lot of people have experienced this. You just start playing a game, you put some time into it, and then you just put it down. Something new probably comes out that you were waiting to play, and that fear of missing out is, oh, I got to play it too so I can get my thoughts out there about it in a video or talk to friends about it. So you put the game down you're playing and start playing it. That is what happened with Dragon Quest VII. I had well over 20 hours into it. I was on my way. Then something else came out and took my time. And once I finished that game, something else was coming out. And I never went back to go to Dragon Quest until a couple of years later. And this is something I know like no one ever does. No one ever goes and like puts a game down and then 3 years later goes back and picks back up right where they left off, especially in a JRPG, and especially in one that can be as confusing as Dragon Quest VII. But with the help of fantastic sites like GameFAQs, where I could just kind of read through and through a process of elimination, figure out where I was and how that guide was lining up, I was like, okay, I'm right here. And this is where I kind of have to get things flowing again. And it put me right back on track. So I was good to go. And then I dropped the game again. Something else comes out and boom, after 20 plus more hours, it's bit the dust again and been left on the wayside. That's when I told you guys at the beginning of this year that I was going to make a commitment to finally play it and finish it. So I did that. I pumped in a ton of hours, and like you saw in the video and we said at the beginning, it finally got conquered this year. And man, I wish I didn't wait so long because I really did enjoy the game. It does have fantastic little storylines connected with every little island that you go to and landmass that you're trying to save. That makes it really interesting. It's a little something different on each island, and there's a bunch to go through. And it's too bad I never really played the original Dragon Warrior to do a kind of a comparison. Of course, watched a lot of video and stuff about it, and it's just incredible that the effort the team put in to get this on a 3DS, because when you see what it looked like on the PlayStation 1 compared to this remake, I don't think it gets enough credit when it comes to remakes and remasters. You know, we talk about Resident Evil remasters, they're fantastic, and the Final Fantasy VII like remake, of course, they're knocking it out the park visually with that stuff. But this Dragon Quest remake, I think, just gets forgotten about just because of the game it is. It's not as popular as those other games. But when you look at Dragon Warrior on the PS1 compared to the graphics and stuff on the 3DS, it's like mind-blowing how they did it. And they literally like brought it all over, it seems like. The storyline and everything, all the islands, it's just awesome. The one thing I can say just from watching footage on the Dragon Warrior side though is the music actually sounded really good on the PlayStation 1. Don't get me wrong, it still sounds great on the 3DS copy here, but something about that PS1 soundtrack, it just had a little bit more orchestral like power behind it. But other than that, it is, like I said, it's true tried and true gameplay of just turn-based combat, and I really love the job system in it. The vocations is what they called in this game. You start off as one vocation until you get to the All Trades Abbey, and it starts to let you experiment with different vocations. Don't want to be a hero class anymore? Go ahead and be a mage. Level up as a martial artist. Oh, you leveled up several different classes. Now more classes are opening up to your vocations, as they say, and just a bunch of them. Mix and match things, and you just got this character who started off with just an attack ability who can now do these ultimate Giga Slash moves and everything depending on the class build you did. So I really love that system in it. Now a lot of these vocations can take a long time to grind out, which is where I think a lot of these hours come for when you're actually playing through this game. Because if you want to grind out every vocation, it's going to take a while. One of my favorite things to do in Dragon Quest is, of course, trying to hunt down metal slimes. And I gotta say, in this game, I was having a tough time even finding metal slimes in it. And when you did, of course, they always want to flee. I eventually got some characters to get the metal slash attack in there to finally start wiping some out, but I never really could find them at all or find good grind spots. And this game really isn't too much about grinding out your level. I think I was around level 38 or 39 when I beat the game. It was mainly about grinding out those vocations to try to beat it so you got the right kind of mixture of abilities and attacks that you can do to get through these battles and boss fights. Because some of these boss fights are pretty epic, and if you don't have the right capabilities with your characters, you can be boom, gone just like that. So overall, even though it took 8 years to finally complete it, I really enjoyed the journey I had with it, and I wish it was just all put together in one like strong feed of me playing it all through. But I don't regret that it took 8 years. I'm happy that I did it, and the hours that I put into it this past year was more than enough hours for any other JRPG. I think my final total for the game, I actually clocked in under 100. I didn't do any post-game stuff, so maybe that's where more can come in, but I'm only around about 86 hours to finally complete it, and it was 86 hours well spent. So if you haven't tried it, I can't recommend it enough. Dragon Quest VII, I know it's that oddball game out of the series, but I really had a good time with it. If you can keep up with the storytelling and the back and forth of the time travel, I mean, it's classic Dragon Quest goodness right here, guys. You gotta give it a go. So there it is. I finally have another Dragon Quest game under my belt. That puts me at 5 Dragon Quest games completed, and we still got some more to go. So it looks like the journey is going to take me to Dragon Quest III again, because that HD remake remaster is coming out. I can't wait to see that with the beautiful 2D, HD, 3D graphics it's got going on. And then we got the 1 and 2 remasters coming out in the same style. So it looks like it might be a while before I actually dive into a new entry that I haven't played yet. But man, I'm looking forward to it. It's good to know that I still have a lot of the classics I still get to play in the future. But right now, it looks like we got some remaster territory we're heading into. So we'll see you guys when Dragon Quest III comes out, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to some more Dragon Quest II. And again, if you haven't tried any yet, what are you waiting on? Get into it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.